This is episode 291 of the Membership Guys podcast. Today we're talking all about member engagement, and particularly how can you as a membership site owner take steps to encourage your members to engage, to nudge them back to your community if they haven't visited for a while, to message them, email them, to remind them to continue on with the course that they started that maybe they haven't actually spent any time working on recently. How can you do those kind of things but maintain the balance between simply encouraging engagement and nagging your members and getting on their nerves? That's what we're going to talk about in today's episode of the Membership Guys podcast.
You're listening to the Membership Guys podcast, bringing you proven, practical tips and advice from the leading experts on growing a successful membership business each and every week. And now, here's your host, Mike Morrison.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Membership Guys podcast. I'm your host, Mike Morrison, and today we're talking all about member engagement. You know, member engagement can be a tricky thing because obviously we want people to be consuming the content and engaging in the community and using the membership that they're paying for. Because if someone's not using what they're paying for, they won't pay for it for very long. However, once someone becomes disengaged, it can be difficult to nudge them back into action. And it can really be a fine balance. If you're a membership owner and you're sending out emails, you're sending out reminders to try and get people to come back to your site, to make them aware of the fact that, you know, maybe they started something and they haven't completed it, or you've been releasing new content, it's been a while since you're logged in. That's definitely stuff that you should be doing, but it definitely gets to a point where you risk annoying and alienating your members. And someone who is already a little disengaged, they haven't been logging in, they haven't been using the membership, if then they feel like you're getting on their nerves, you're being a little bit obnoxious, or, you know, they keep seeing your emails pop up every single day, reminding them about that thing that they haven't done, nagging them to come back to the membership, then very suddenly their view of you and their likelihood, their willingness and their desire to be part of your membership, to actually come back, starts to turn, it starts to sour. Now, at the time of release, February 2nd, 2021, so we're just out of January, which is typically the month where everybody makes that resolution that they're going to get fit and they all join gyms. Now, that might not be happening this year with the pandemic and all of that, but, you know, it might still be happening, or they might just be exercising at home. But let's just say in a given year, January, usually you'll join the gym. If you then forget to go, you fall into bad habits, life takes over, you lose your discipline. If you started hearing from the personal trainer or someone who runs the gym, if they start messaging you every day, kind of saying, hey, are you still fat? Hey, are you still fat? Hey, are you not fit yet? Do you not want to be fit? Are you still eating cake for breakfast? Like, those, just me? Is it just me who gets those? No, but, you know, that kind of nagging, especially when it relates to something that you probably know you should be doing. You know, if someone's joined your membership, they've joined because they've got a goal, they've joined because they've got a problem they want solving, there's a pursuit of mastery, something they want to learn. And so if they haven't been using your membership, if they haven't been doing the things that at one point they committed themselves to do, they'll probably have an awareness of that. They might have a little bit of guilt around that. And so if you're constantly poking them saying, hey, fat boy, why are you still fat? Hey, you do realize that if you want to lose weight, you've got to actually use the machines. You got to come to the gym. You know, if you become that person to them, you're going to lose them. So how do you get that balance? How do you make sure that you are sending reminders to people, you're getting back on their radar, that you're encouraging them and you're nudging them in a positive way, and that you don't become a nag? that this doesn't become a problem, that you don't alienate, and that you're not becoming obnoxious and annoying with the volume and the repetitiveness of the reminders that you're sending to try and prompt someone to come back to your site. So there's a few tips that I've got for you. First of all, unsubscribe members from your general email list. Most people do this, but quite often people forget. So when someone joins your membership, they'll stay on your main general email list that you use to send out sales emails for a start, but also emails about your podcast, emails about blog. Some people send out daily emails just kind of talking about what they had for breakfast. Some people literally do that. Make sure you unsubscribe your members from that general email list, mainly so that you bring down the volume of communication that they're getting from you. And so the signal to noise ratio works better in your favor. Because if someone has received 2 emails from you this week about something you put on your blog, they've received an email about a sales promo you've got going on, they maybe received an email about new additions to the membership. If you then send them a kind of an automated reminder that essentially nudges them to log in, kind of says, hey, we noticed you haven't logged in for a while, it's just going to get lost. It's just more noise. It's not going to get the attention it needs because you're emailing so many other things to them. So that can be a real good way in making sure that when you are emailing people, they're paying more attention to it. And people don't just default into the mode of, oh God, it's another email from this person, I'll read that later, or hit delete, or they filter it out, mark it as read, and they never look at it. So that's one tip, not just for encouraging engagement, for sending those little engagement reminder emails, but just for making sure that your communication is a little clearer and that there's more chance that the important stuff you send gets through. The next tip, not to go overboard with your onboarding emails that you send to new members, and also with just the regular standard emails you send to all members. Once again, this is about making sure that day to day, you're not bombarding people with so much email that when you do send engagement prompts, they just fade or they just blend into a glut of existing email content. So again, when we're talking about encouraging engagement, I've largely so far been talking about it from the perspective of someone who might have been a member of your site for a while and they're starting to slip away. But same applies for a new member joining your site. Obviously, your new member onboarding strategy will typically include sending emails to your members, encouraging them to take certain first steps in your community. If you want those messages to get through, you don't want to overdo it. Don't bombard them with dozens and dozens of emails in their first week because they're going to get overwhelmed. They're going to fall behind. They're not going to read them and they might miss some important information, which means they never quite get into the habits of using your site, logging in. Maybe they never introduce themselves to the community and so on. Third tip, if you're using a CRM, so an email marketing CRM like ActiveCampaign, Keep, Infusionsoft, Ontraport, ConvertKit, even the likes of MailChimp and so on, which are introducing tagging and automation, you can use tagging to create what I call a buffer around the emails that you send. So what we try to do, if we've got to send any important emails to members that might be things like prompts for them to log back in, where we want to make sure it doesn't just get missed. Like if we don't want a situation where someone gets like an update email from the membership and then 5 minutes later they get another email that has been automated because they haven't logged in for a while. One of them is going to get missed, right? So what we'll do around certain emails, we use a tag to essentially exclude that person from any of the emails that might be sent for maybe a day before and a day after the particular email in that sequence that's going out. So again, with new member onboarding, for example, if you know that on the 4th day that someone is a member, you're going to send them an email that gives them some tips on how to get involved in the community. Part of your automation, what you might look to do, one day before that email goes out, you add a tag that kind of just says no other emails, right? You then remove that tag one day after the email goes out. Then any other emails you might send to your whole member base, you can set them to send to everyone in your membership except the people who have the tag no other emails. So the only people who have that tag no other emails, they will only have that tag if they are scheduled to get an email as part of their onboarding or as part of, an engagement follow-up. So it just makes sure that, again, you're not kind of mixing in too many emails going out at exactly the same time. That buffer can just clear up a little bit of the other noise that might be going on to make sure that when someone checks in their inbox, they're not seeing 3 emails from you and the one you really, really need them to read at that time is lost amongst the others. So tagging within one of these CRM platforms like ActiveCampaign and so on, to create that buffer, it can work really, really well. We do that as well for our general email list. So, we don't necessarily want, if we're sending out kind of the first few emails on our engagement campaign, when someone joins our email list, we don't want those constantly butting up against other ad hoc emails we might be sending out, because we don't want to cloud out and drown out the important messages that we might want people to get within their first few days. So we use those tags, no other emails. We just use it to create essentially a no-fly zone in terms of time around important emails that we want to send. So that can be a great way to make sure you're not bombarding your members with too many emails and you're not annoying them basically and risking the fact that they're going to start ignoring your messages. Now, if you're using an in-app messaging tool like Intercom or Drift to send people little messages, little notifications about new content, maybe reminders again about things that they've started but not completed, all that sort of stuff, you can use, I know certainly within Intercom, I believe within Drift, you can actually utilize some time-based settings whereby this message will only pop up for someone if they log in between now and 2 days from now. If they haven't logged in during that time and they log in afterwards, don't bother showing them this message. Doing that helps to stop a buildup of these messages. So you might be sending out 4 or 5 of these messages inside your site in any given week. If someone hasn't logged in for 2 or 3 weeks, and then, you sent them an email saying, hey, we noticed you haven't been around. Why not, spend 5 minutes checking back in with the community, blah, blah, blah. They go, they log in, and there's 15 messages all pop up at once. They've basically got this big inbox of communication from you on your site. They're going to very quickly close and probably not come back, right? So you want to stop that buildup of messages. And if you're using Intercom, if you're using Drift and the like, you can set the time limit for when these messages will and won't show, just to ensure that they're not building up. If you have them building up, then that's just going to mess with the likelihood of someone actually getting re-engaged with your site. Next tip, give members the ability to selectively stop, so selectively unsubscribe from certain types of messages. And you can use tagging for this. So normally, if someone doesn't want to get emails from you, the only option they have is to click on the unsubscribe link. But if they're a member, you really, really don't want them doing that, because there's stuff that you will need to tell them about. There's emails they need to get. However, if every week or every other day they're getting an email from you saying, oh, hey, we noticed that you started this course, and then you stopped halfway through, why not log in and complete it? Oh, hey, we noticed you haven't logged in for a few weeks. Why not come back to the site? Hey, have you been in the community recently? Like, if they're getting all of these kind of things, if just one of them annoys them, they might click that unsubscribe link, and that means they're going to miss important stuff in the future. So what you could do is you could almost give them what is a soft unsubscribe option. Once more, this requires you to be using a tag-based email CRM. But as we said before, most email systems now can utilize tags. And many of them, particularly ActiveCampaign as an example, what you can do is you can add a link into an email and you can set the email so that if someone clicks on that link, it will automatically add a tag to their account. So the way it would work, if you send out an engagement reminder, a login prompt, and you could have a link within that saying, if you don't want to receive these kind of reminders from us, simply click this link to stop getting them. They can click that link so they don't have to click unsubscribe from the entire email list. They click the link that just says, yes, stop this particular type of email. Your CRM sees that link click and says, okay, we're going to add this tag, no login reminders. The link will contain a page on your site that says, thanks for letting us know, we'll make sure you don't get this email in future. That means that person then has the tag, and then in the future, you can have these automations, these email campaigns set to exclude anyone who has the tag that says no login reminders. So again, that soft unsubscribe just gives people a little bit more control. So if they do feel that you're nagging them, or if the reason they haven't logged in is because they've got something serious going on, they've just lost a family member, they've had a major change in circumstance, you don't want to be that person who is kind of tapping on their shoulder, nagging them constantly, week after week. So giving them the ability to soft unsubscribe from just certain types of reminders and emails just ensures that you don't annoy them or alienate them to a point where they think, you know what, screw it, I was going to come back on my own volition anyway, but now they're just getting on my nerves, so I'm going to cancel. So using tagging to give people the ability to selectively stop certain types of messages can be a good compromise rather than them having to unsubscribe from everything. The next tip for encouraging engagement, for sending messages, for trying to get on the radar of people to get them to re-engage is to mix things up in terms of the format, in terms of the platform you use to actually reach people, in terms of the timing. So naturally what most people do is they send these reminders via email, because there's various little tricks, various little ways in which you can almost kind of monitor, almost set a timer. If you're using ActiveCampaign, we've got a little tutorial on how to do this in Membership Academy. You can almost set a timer so that if someone hasn't logged into a site for a certain period of time, your email automation will automatically fire something out to them. If you're using certain tools like WP Fusion, again, that can detect how long it's been since someone logged in. You can maybe detect how long it is since someone watched a lesson, all that kind of stuff you can do, but usually it's based around email. Sometimes you might use Intercom. Intercom, again, can either send an on-site message or it can send an email, but email tends to be the norm. However, you could add Facebook Messenger into the mix. So maybe you give your members the option of subscribing and receive updates about your membership via Facebook Messenger. And if you have, you might look to use that as a way to mix things up, to send certain types of updates to your member base so that you're not in their inbox quite as much. And therefore, when you do email them prompts to get re-engaged, it's not one of many emails that they're receiving. They might be more likely to read it and more likely to follow up on it. You could also look to use remarketing. So Facebook remarketing ads, or even Google remarketing ads, where you can tailor the timing of when ads get shown, essentially based on how long it's been since someone visited a particular page on your website. So through really clever targeting, you could actually start showing ads on Facebook to people who haven't logged in for a while, or to people who started a course and didn't finish it, or to people who haven't been in your community for a while. You could start showing them ads as a way of reminding them, giving them the nudge that way, rather than only ever going via email. Or even just keeping things simpler. Again, you can use remarketing ads, you can use Facebook ads to get the word out about new content you add, to get the word out about upcoming training, upcoming Q&As, other things that you might instinctively think, okay, if I want to let people know about this, I'm going to email it. Once again, that reduces how many email messages you need to send members, so that if you're sending them email to prompt them to log in, to prompt them to re-engage, it's not fighting against 20 other emails you might have sent that week. So mix things up, mix up the format, mix up the way in which you actually get yourself in front of these people to try to re-engage them. Next tip, don't force it. Just don't force it. Don't overdo it. So if you sent out an email or 2 emails to people over the last few weeks, essentially saying, we've noticed you haven't logged in for a while. Here's what you missed. We'd love to see you back. Don't just keep sending them that over and over and over again. You need to make sure any automations, any systems you have to follow up, that they know where to stop. That if someone hasn't responded, if someone hasn't clicked, if someone hasn't followed through, then don't constantly just keep reaching out to them, constantly nagging them over and over and over again. Know when to stop. Don't try to force it. Send them a couple of messages. Maybe take it from different angles. Perhaps, if it is someone you're trying to get to log in who hasn't logged in for a while, maybe the first email is just kind of, hey, we noticed this. Is everything okay? Hit reply, let us know, how you're getting on or if you're having any problems. Then maybe a week or so later, there's another email just kind of say, hey, we miss you. This is what you're missing. But then draw the line at that. Let that be it. If they still haven't taken action, let that be it. And also make sure that when you're setting up these kind of follow-ups, these kind of reminders, that you are being wary of the big picture. That you have mechanisms in place. Usually you'll use tagging for this. You have mechanisms in place to make sure that if someone's come on your site and they've maybe started 3 courses all in the same day, but they've not finished them, and then they haven't logged in for 2 weeks at all, that they're not simultaneously getting 4 follow-up campaigns, 1 for each of the 3 courses and 1 general login follow-up campaign. So they're not getting an email saying, hey, we noticed you started course number 1, blah, 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 blah. Hey, we noticed you started course number 2, blah, 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 blah. Hey, we've noticed you've not logged in for a while. You need to get smart. You need to think about that bigger picture. Don't overdo it. Don't try to force it, and know when to stop. Make sure that you're not going overboard on this. And then finally, keep in mind that not everyone in your membership will engage in the way that you want them to. And don't make assumptions about what engagement is and isn't acceptable. You could have someone who's logging in every day, consuming every course you have. They're lapping it up, they love it, but they never, ever participate in your community. If you have it in your mind that the most important thing for you is that members participate in your community, you could find yourself nagging someone about not being engaged when actually they're highly engaged. They're just engaged in parts of your membership that you're not prioritizing. So you could be essentially accosting them for not participating when they're probably participating in the other aspects of your membership more than other people are. And when it comes to community, a lot of people base how engaged their membership is on activity in the community. The vast majority of members in any given membership community will not be visible. They'll not reply. There's something called the 99-1 rule, which we talk about quite often here on the Membership Guys podcast. This is a rule of thumb that essentially states that in any given community, about 1% will be power users. These are people who show up several times a day. They start conversations. They're amongst the first to reply to them. They are power users. About 9% will be regular users. They'll maybe show up every day or so, every other day, a few times a week. They'll reply to conversations more than they start them. You'll know who they are. They're just kind of regular, general users. They're not the power users. They don't live in your community, but they are active. The other 90% quite often will either be lurkers or just occasional users. So they might actually be logging in daily, but they're not replying. They're not stepping forward and saying anything, but they're still getting a lot of value from reading the conversations, from consuming. Now, some of that 90% just won't want anything from your community. They won't take part in your community at all. But again, that doesn't mean that they're not engaged elsewhere. It doesn't mean that they are the wrong kind of member. And the ones who are lurkers, who are passively engaging, passively participating in your community, they're still getting value. They're still engaged. Just because they don't meet the characteristics of what you feel is an engaged member doesn't mean they're not engaged at all. So just keep that in mind. Remember that 99-1 rule and make sure that you're not nagging members and accosting them for not being engaged when they are actually engaged. They're just engaging in their own way and they're perfectly happy. So hopefully this episode has been useful for giving you some food for thought, some specific tips about how you can get that right balance between proactively and actively trying to encourage engagement, following up with people to entice them back if they've not logged in for a while, nudging people to complete content that they may have started, reminding them about what's going on in your community, keeping them updated, balancing all of that. That's a lot of communication. So treading and staying on the right side of the line between keeping people informed, giving them nudges where they need, and just being annoying, being overbearing, and ultimately getting into a place where your message doesn't get through. And if it does, it's just getting on people's nerves and making them likely to actually want to leave rather than make any effort to re-engage. So I do hope you found this useful. If you have, be sure to let me know on social. On Twitter, you can find me at Membership Guys. On Instagram, you can find me at Membership Guy, singular, just me on there. Or if you're inside our free Facebook group, which you can find by searching for Membership Mastermind on Facebook or by typing talkmembership.com. So talkmemberships.com into your browser. That'll redirect you to the group. We've got about 17 to 18,000 members in that free group. Let me know in there or on any of the other social channels about what your biggest takeaway from this episode is. Have you got a new idea you're going to try? Have you maybe realized that perhaps you're overdoing it? Maybe you need to implement a buffer around your emails to ensure that the signal to noise ratio is such that your messages actually get through. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up on social. That is it from me. I will be back again next week with another installment of the Membership Guys podcast.